The morning smelled like roses and rain. I remember because I thought it was a sign, a blessing for the day I was supposed to start a new life. My white dress felt heavy, but my heart was light. The church bells were already ringing outside, their echoes mingling with laughter and soft music. Everyone looked happy. Everyone except me. I stood before the mirror, my hands trembling slightly as I adjusted the veil. My reflection stared back at me, pale and uncertain. My mother's voice floated from outside the room, reminding me that it was time. I forced a smile, whispered to my reflection, "You're fine. This is what you wanted," and stepped out. The air inside the chapel felt thick, perfumed with lilies and something else. Nerves, maybe. My fiancé, Daniel, stood at the altar. He looked perfect in his tuxedo, polished and steady. His family filled the front pews, whispering blessings and promises. Everything was beautiful, but the moment I stepped into the aisle, my chest tightened. And then I saw him. He was standing at the very back of the church, half in the shadows. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit that didn't belong at a wedding. His presence made the air shift, like a silent storm had entered the room. At first, I thought he was a bodyguard, or maybe someone lost. But then, he lifted his gaze. And when our eyes met, everything inside me froze. He didn't look away. Not once. His stare was sharp, unyielding, and there was something dangerous in it. Something that made my knees weaken even as my pulse raced. I tried to keep walking, pretending not to notice, but his gaze followed me, consuming me with quiet intensity. When I reached the altar, Daniel took my hands. His palms were warm and safe, grounding, but my mind was somewhere else, still trapped in that man's stare. The priest began to speak, his voice calm and rhythmic, but every word blurred. My attention kept drifting to the back of the room, where the stranger hadn't moved. He leaned slightly against the pew, hands clasped in front of him. His expression didn't change, but there was something fierce in the stillness of his posture, like he was waiting. Then it happened. Just as the priest said the words, "If anyone objects to this union," the stranger moved. The sound of his footsteps echoed like thunder down the aisle. Slow, deliberate. The entire room went silent. I felt Daniel's grip tighten around my fingers. The priest stopped mid-sentence. My heart thudded against my ribs as the man came closer, the scent of rain and smoke trailing behind him. He stopped a few feet from us, his eyes never leaving mine. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough, carrying authority that silenced even the whispers. "You're marrying the wrong man." The words hit like a strike of lightning. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother rose to her feet, covering her mouth. Daniel took a step forward, his voice shaking with fury. "Who the hell do you think you are?" The stranger didn't flinch. He looked at Daniel for a heartbeat before turning back to me. "You don't belong with him." Something in his tone wasn't jealousy. It was certainty, as if he knew something none of us did. Daniel lunged forward, but two men appeared from the doorway behind the stranger. Dressed in black, their eyes hidden by shades, they moved like shadows closing in around him. Not bodyguards, soldiers. "Get out!" Daniel barked. "Security!" But no one moved. No one dared. The priest stepped back, fear flickering in his eyes. The guests murmured nervously. The stranger reached into his jacket, and for a split second, I thought he was going for a weapon. My breath caught in my throat. Instead, he pulled out a small black wallet. He tossed it onto the altar, where it landed beside the wedding bands. Daniel froze. His eyes darted to the wallet, then to the man. The blood drained from his face. "Now you remember me?" the stranger said softly, but his tone was deadly. Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. His silence said everything. My pulse pounded. I looked between them, confusion spreading like wildfire. Daniel, what's going on? Daniel didn't look at me. His jaw clenched. The stranger took a step closer, and I could see the scar that traced his jawline, the faint shadow of a tattoo near his collar. Something foreign, powerful. He owes me, the man said, his gaze flicking toward Daniel before locking on me again. And now, he's trying to pay that debt with your life. The words didn't make sense. My voice came out barely a whisper. What are you talking about? Daniel finally spoke, his tone low and trembling. He's lying. Don't listen to him. The stranger's lip twitched. Not quite a smile, more like a warning. You think she won't find out? You think she'll live in your pretty little lie forever? I stepped back, my heels wobbling on the marble floor. The air felt colder now, heavier. Everyone was watching, guests frozen, the music forgotten, the priest clutching his cross. Who are you? I asked, my voice shaking. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, My name doesn't matter. But if you walk out of here with him, you'll never make it to your honeymoon. Before anyone could react, one of the men in black leaned toward him and murmured something. The stranger nodded, then turned his gaze back to me. Leave with me right now, and I'll explain everything. Stay, and you'll regret it. Daniel grabbed my hand, pulling me behind him. She's not going anywhere. The stranger's eyes darkened. Then you've made your choice. He turned to leave, and just as he reached the doors, a shot rang out. Screams filled the air. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the church as chaos erupted. Daniel pulled me to the ground, shielding me with his body. But I could see the stranger turning back, calm, deadly, his men already drawing weapons. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The veil fell from my hair, fluttering across the marble like a ghost. When the smoke cleared, the stranger was gone. But his wallet, the one he'd thrown on the altar, remained. And as Daniel's trembling hand reached to grab it, I saw the name embossed in silver letters. Vincenzo Moretti. I didn't know the name, but the way Daniel froze told me everything. Vincenzo Moretti wasn't just anyone. He was a name whispered in fear, a man whose power ran deeper than law, money, or mercy. And he had just ruined my wedding. My fingers closed around the edge of my torn veil, my heart pounding as realization sank in. My life had just collided with the most dangerous man in the city. And somehow, I knew this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The church was a blur of shattered glass, screams, and chaos. Even now, hours later, I could still hear the echo of that gunshot in my ears. By the time the police arrived, Vincenzo Moretti and his men were gone. So was half of my wedding party. Guests scattered like frightened birds. My white dress, once pristine, was stained with soot and dust. Daniel sat on the church steps, head in his hands, shaking. I sat beside him in silence, clutching that black wallet. His wallet. I didn't even know why I kept it. Maybe because it felt like the only real thing left after everything crumbled. The wallet was heavy, expensive leather, with initials embossed inside. VM. Inside were crisp bills, a black card, and a folded photograph. It was old. A picture of a young man, smiling beside another man who looked eerily like Daniel. I felt my stomach twist. Daniel, I said softly, holding the photo out. Who is this? He looked up, eyes rimmed red. His expression changed when he saw what I was holding, from grief to something colder. Where did you get that? You know where, I said quietly. Tell me who he is. He hesitated, then took the photo from me with shaking hands. That was a long time ago. Who is he? Daniel swallowed hard. Vincenzo Moretti. We used to work together. Work together? I repeated, my voice sharp with disbelief. You mean for him? He didn't answer. The silence was enough. I stood up, my heels clicking on the stone. You worked for the Mafia? He reached for me, but I stepped back. It wasn't like that, he said quickly. It was business. Just business. I didn't know who he really was until it was too late. And the debt? I demanded. He said you owed him. Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked away, the muscles in his neck tightening. It's complicated. Complicated? I laughed bitterly. A man just walked into our wedding, threatened us, and nearly got people killed. Because of you. That's not complicated, Daniel. That's insane. He stood, stepping closer. You don't understand what he's capable of. I met his eyes. Then make me understand. He hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. Years ago, I took money from him. A lot of money. It was supposed to be an investment, but when things went bad, I couldn't pay it back. He said there would be consequences. Consequences, I repeated, my pulse racing. And that's why he came here? To what? Ruin our wedding? Daniel shook his head, looking terrified. No, it's worse than that. He doesn't make empty threats. If he said you're part of this now, he means it. A chill crawled down my spine. You're telling me that because of your debt, I'm in danger? He didn't answer. I wanted to scream, to run, to undo the past hour of my life. But instead I stood frozen, the weight of Vincenzo's name pressing against my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. The storm outside mirrored the one in my mind. Lightning flashed across the city skyline, thunder shaking the walls. I sat by the window in Daniel's apartment, staring down at the streets below. The wallet sat beside me on the table. I couldn't stop looking at it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, sharp, cold, yet hauntingly beautiful in a way that made my stomach twist. His eyes had burned through me, not with lust or hatred, but something deeper, like he was studying a secret only he could see. The knock on the door made me jump. Daniel was asleep in the bedroom, so I went to answer it. The hallway was dark. When I opened the door, a man in a suit stood there, drenched from the rain. He looked familiar. One of the men from the church. Before I could speak, he pressed a folded note into my hand. For you, he said quietly, then turned and walked away. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. It wasn't a note. It was a business card. Black. Embossed in silver. Vincenzo Moretti. Moretti Holdings. Beneath that, a single address and a time. Midnight. My pulse spiked. I turned the card over and found 2 words written in elegant handwriting. Come alone. I looked at the clock. 11:40. Something in me said not to go, that this was a trap, a mistake. But another part of me, the one that couldn't stop replaying his voice, his eyes, his warning, that part whispered that I needed to know the truth. At 11:55, I found myself standing in front of a mansion on the edge of the city. The gates loomed tall, guarded by men in black coats. The house itself was lit only by dim golden lights, casting long shadows across the rain-slick driveway. When I stepped out of the cab, one of the guards opened the gate wordlessly. "He's expecting you," he said. I walked up the long stone path, my heart beating so fast I could barely breathe. Inside, the air was warm, thick with the scent of cigar smoke and leather. Everything gleamed. Marble floors, dark wood, gold accents. But it wasn't the luxury that made my breath catch. It was the silence. Then I saw him. He stood at the far end of the room, beside a grand piano, dressed in a black shirt. sleeves rolled to his forearms. He didn't look surprised to see me, just mildly amused. "You came?" he said, his voice low, smooth, dangerous. I swallowed hard. "You told me to." He smiled faintly. "Most people don't listen to me, especially not women who've just watched me ruin their wedding." I stared at him. "Why did you do it?" His expression didn't change. "Because it was never supposed to happen." "What wasn't?" He walked closer, the click of his shoes echoing softly. "That marriage. You marrying him." "And you decided that for me?" His gaze hardened, but there was something else behind it. Something almost pained. "I decided nothing. Your fiancé did when he stole from me." He stopped a few feet away. "He thought he could buy his way out. That marrying you would make him untouchable." "Untouchable from you," I said bitterly. His eyes met mine, sharp and unflinching. "No one is untouchable from me." The silence stretched, electric. I could feel the pull of him, the quiet authority, the danger, the strange calm that came from being near him. It was maddening, magnetic. I forced myself to look away. "So what happens now? Are you going to kill him?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer until I could feel his breath against my cheek. "If I wanted him dead," he said softly, "he would be." My pulse fluttered, too fast. "Then what do you want?" He studied me for a moment that felt endless. "You." The word hit like a spark in the dark. I blinked, confused. "Me?" He nodded slowly. "To understand why he risked everything for you. Why he thought your name could save him." His voice dropped lower, rougher. "And maybe to see if he was right." My breath caught. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what this was. Threat, warning, or something else entirely. Then, from somewhere deeper in the house, I heard a door slam. Footsteps. Another man entered, whispering something in Vincenzo's ear. His jaw tightened. He looked back at me, his expression unreadable. "You need to leave. Now." "Why?" He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes said everything. Whatever was coming, it was dangerous. He grabbed my wrist, his hand warm and strong, guiding me toward a hidden door behind the piano. "Go out the back. Don't stop until you're in your car." "What's happening?" I whispered. He looked over his shoulder, voice low. "Someone followed you." Before I could speak, glass shattered from the windows above us. Shouts filled the air. Vincenzo pushed me behind him, pulling a gun from his holster with terrifying precision. And in that instant, amidst the chaos, the fear, the sound of bullets and breaking glass, one thought pulsed through my mind. I wasn't a bride anymore. I was prey in the world of predators, and the man protecting me was the most dangerous of them all. Gunfire exploded through the mansion, echoing off marble and glass. I hit the ground before I even realized I was moving. The world turned into a blur of flashing lights and chaos. Vincenzo was already standing, calm in the storm, firing precise shots toward the shattered windows. The men around him moved like a silent army, trained, lethal, efficient. He gave no shouted orders, no panic, just a few quiet words that cut through the chaos like a blade. "Cover the east wing. Don't let them near her." Her. Me. My pulse pounded in my throat as he turned to me. "Stay down," he said. "Don't move unless I tell you." I nodded, too stunned to speak. The air smelled of gunpowder and rain, and beneath it all, that same intoxicating scent I couldn't name. Smoke, cedar, and something darker. A man burst through the side door, masked, gun raised. I froze. Vincenzo didn't. He stepped forward, caught the man by the wrist, twisted it until the weapon dropped, and shoved him into the wall with one fluid motion. The sound of bone cracking made my stomach lurch. He didn't even look at the body when it hit the floor. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The back door was right there. Freedom, if I had the courage to take it. But something kept me rooted. The way he moved, the calm in his violence, the quiet control that felt more dangerous than any weapon. Then, as quickly as it began, the noise died. The only sound left was rain and the faint hum of the chandelier swinging above us. Vincenzo lowered his gun and turned to face me. For the first time, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not rage, not triumph. Something like regret. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly. "You told me to," I whispered. My voice shook, half from fear, half from adrenaline. He looked away, jaw tightening. "I didn't think you actually would." I pushed myself up, brushing dust from my dress. "What was that? Who were they?" He walked past me, checking the fallen bodies like he was counting ghosts. "People who don't know when to die." "That's not an answer." He stopped, turned. "You want the truth?" His voice was low, dangerous but steady. "They were here for me, to send a message. Someone wants me gone. And now that you've been seen with me, that makes you a message too." My heart dropped. "You're saying they'll come after me?" "I'm saying," he said quietly, "that they'll think you matter to me. And that's enough." I didn't know what scared me more. The idea that strangers wanted me dead, or that somewhere, buried under all that ice and control, I might actually matter to him. I stared at him. Why would they think that? We barely know each other. He stepped closer. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "Because you came when I told you to. Because you looked at me and didn't run. Because right now I'm still standing between you and every man who wants you dead." I didn't realize I was shaking until he reached out and touched my wrist. His fingers were warm, steady, grounding. "You should hate me," he said quietly. "You probably do." "I don't know what I feel," I admitted. He nodded once, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "That's smart." He turned away again, holstering his gun. "You can't go home tonight. They'll be watching." I followed him as he walked toward a heavy oak door at the end of the hallway. It opened into what looked like a study. Shelves of old books, a fireplace glowing low, the faint scent of smoke and bourbon hanging in the air. "Stay here," he said. "Don't open the door for anyone but me." "Where are you going?" "To make sure this doesn't happen again." I hesitated. "And if it does?" He looked at me over his shoulder. "Then I'll be the last thing they ever see." When the door closed behind him, silence returned. Thick, suffocating. I sank into one of the leather chairs, hugging my knees, trying to process the last few hours. I'd gone from bride to fugitive, from church bells to gunfire, and the man who caused it all was now the only one keeping me alive. My eyes drifted to the fireplace. A single photograph sat on the mantel. Vincenzo, younger, with a woman who looked gentle, kind. She had the same dark eyes, the same grace. A mother, maybe. Before I could think too much, the door opened again. He walked in, slower this time. His shirt was torn at the sleeve, blood on his knuckles. I stood quickly. "You're hurt." He glanced down, unconcerned. "Not mine." He poured himself a glass of whiskey and leaned against the desk. The firelight cast his features in bronze and shadow, making him look both human and untouchable. "You're still here," he said quietly. "You told me not to leave." He smirked faintly. "Most people don't listen." "I'm not most people." His eyes lifted to mine. The corner of his mouth curved, almost like approval. "No, you're not." The silence that followed was heavy, charged. I could feel it. The shift. The air between us thickened with something unspoken. I took a step closer. You said they think I matter to you. Why would they think that after one day? He didn't look away. Because I looked at you the way I shouldn't have. My breath caught. And how was that? He set his glass down and took a slow step toward me. Then another. Until we were close enough that I could feel the heat from his body, smell the faint trace of smoke and rain on his skin. Like I already knew you, he said softly. Like I'd seen you before. Somewhere I shouldn't have been. I swallowed hard. You didn't. He smiled faintly. Maybe not in this life. For a moment, the world felt still. The gunfire, the danger, the fear, all of it faded into the background. There was only the rhythm of my heartbeat and the weight of his gaze. Then he took a slow breath and stepped back. Get some rest. I'll have someone bring you clothes. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to fix this. Can it be fixed? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. His expression softened, but there was sadness in it. A man who'd seen too much to believe in easy endings. No, he said finally, but it can be survived. He turned and walked out, leaving me alone with the crackle of the fire and the echo of his words. When the door clicked shut, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I should have been terrified. Instead, all I could think of was the way he'd looked at me, like a man who'd spent his life in darkness, and for a second, saw a reason to reach for the light. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky again, and for the first time since that ruined wedding, I knew this was only the beginning. Morning light spilled across the edges of the room, soft and golden, a cruel contrast to the violence of the night before. I woke on the leather sofa, my neck stiff, my pulse still uneven. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then the smell of smoke, the faint hum of distant voices, and the quiet power of the house reminded me. I was in his world now. Vincenzo Moretti's mansion was silent, like it was holding its breath. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the sound of running water, maybe a fountain or rain against the windows. Everything felt too calm, the kind of calm that only comes before something breaks. I pushed the blanket off me and stood, noticing someone had left a tray of breakfast on the desk. Coffee, eggs, fruit. Too perfect, too formal, like I was a guest instead of a hostage. A soft knock came at the door. Before I could answer, a woman stepped in. She was in her 40s, dressed neatly in black, her hair pulled into a low bun. "Miss," she said, uncertain. "Clara," I answered, my voice hoarse. She nodded once. "I'm Maria. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you some clothes." I blinked. "He thought of that?" She gave a faint smile. "He thinks of everything." She set a folded stack of clothes on the chair, a simple black dress, clean undergarments, shoes. I stared at them for a long moment, then looked up. "Do people usually stay here?" Her smile didn't fade, but her eyes gave her away. "Not often, and never for long." The door closed behind her, leaving the air heavy again. I changed quietly, the dress fitting perfectly, almost unnervingly so. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. The wedding dress was gone. The bright eyes were gone too. What was left looked harder. Colder. When I finally left the study, I followed, the long marble hallway until I reached an open terrace. The city stretched out below, gray and golden under the morning sun. And there he was. Vincenzo stood near the balcony rail, a phone pressed to his ear. He was dressed in black again, sleeves rolled, forearms marked with faint bruises from the night before. Even from behind, his presence filled the space. Controlled, dangerous, quiet. He ended the call and turned when he heard me. His eyes scanned me once, unreadable, then softened, just slightly. "You slept?" he said, more a statement than a question. "Not really." He gestured toward the table behind him. 2 cups of coffee steamed there. "You should eat something." "I already did." "Eat more," he said simply. "You'll need it." I folded my arms, watching him. "You always order people around like that?" He smiled faintly. "Only the ones I plan on keeping alive." It should have scared me. Instead, something in his tone made my pulse quicken. "What happens now?" I asked. He leaned back against the railing, his gaze turning toward the horizon. "Now, I find out who sent those men. And you stay here until I do." "I can't stay here," I said quickly. "My job—" "You don't have one anymore," he interrupted, calm but final. "Your fiancé made sure of that when he ran. My men couldn't find him." The words hit harder than I expected. "He ran?" Vincenzo's eyes shifted back to me. With what was left of my money? For a moment, all I could do was stare. "So that's it? He steals from you, disappears, and I pay the price?" He didn't flinch. "You already did." I turned away, gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles went white. "You ruined my life." He was silent for a long time before he spoke. "I didn't ruin it. I just showed you what it really was." I spun to face him. "You don't know anything about me." He took a slow step forward, eyes locked on mine. "I know what it looks like when someone's living a lie." The words cut through me. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't see me, but he did. Too clearly. His phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. "Excuse me." He stepped away, his voice low, clipped, Italian slipping between his English. I caught only fragments. Family name, betrayal, debt, find him alive. When he returned, his expression had darkened. "You're not leaving this house today," he said firmly. "They know who you are now. If they find you alone, they'll use you to get to me." "So I'm bait?" He looked at me for a long moment. "You're leverage." The honesty stung more than any lie could have. I walked past him, down the hall toward the grand staircase. The house was massive. Chandeliers, carved banisters, walls lined with oil paintings. All beauty built on blood. When I reached the bottom, I heard faint music coming from a nearby room. A piano. The melody was haunting, delicate, almost human in its sadness. I followed the sound until I reached the open doorway of a dimly lit music room. Vincenzo sat at the piano, head bowed, his fingers moving with quiet precision. It didn't fit. The man who'd broken bones without blinking, who'd spoken death like it was a language, playing something that sounded like heartbreak turned into song. I stood in silence until he noticed me. His hands stilled on the keys. "You play," I said softly. He looked up, eyes distant. "My mother taught me, before everything changed." "She's gone?" He nodded once. "A long time ago." I stepped closer, the music still echoing faintly between us. "That song? What is it?" "It doesn't have a name." His voice was low. "I only play it when I can't sleep." He turned on the bench to face me, elbows resting on his knees. "Why are you here?" "You told me not to leave." "That's not what I meant." I hesitated. "Because I don't know where else to go." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair enough." The silence stretched, but it wasn't awkward this time. Just quiet. Heavy. When he finally spoke again, his tone had changed. "You should know something, Clara. The men who came last night, they weren't the only ones. Someone wants me gone, and they'll use whatever they can to make that happen. Even me." "Yes." I met his eyes. "Then teach me how to survive your world." He blinked, surprised. "You wouldn't last a week." "Maybe not," I said, "but I'm not going to sit here waiting to die." For the first time, he smiled. A real one. Small, genuine, and almost boyish. You're reckless. Maybe I learned it from you. He stood, stepping closer until we were inches apart. The air between us seemed to hum. Fine, he said quietly. You want to learn? Then you start by listening. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. His touch lingered just long enough for me to feel the heat beneath his restraint. In my world, trust is a currency. Don't spend it lightly. My breath caught. Do you trust me? He held my gaze, silent. Then he said, No, but I could. Something shifted in that moment. Something that neither of us could name, but both of us felt. It was dangerous. I knew that. But it was also inevitable. The kind of connection that didn't ask permission. A voice interrupted from the hall. Boss? Vincenzo turned sharply. One of his men stood at the door, tense. They found him, he said. Your fiancé. The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Vincenzo's eyes darkened. Where? Port of Naples. He's trying to leave the country. He looked back at me. His face was unreadable again. All business, no emotion. Get her upstairs. Don't let her out of your sight. I stepped forward. Wait. But he was already gone, disappearing into the shadowed hall. And for the second time in 2 days, the man who'd destroyed my life was the only one I wanted to come back. The house felt colder after he left. The silence wasn't peace. It was a warning. I stood by the tall window, staring at the driveway where his black car had vanished moments before. My reflection looked strange against the glass, pale, tired, still wearing the borrowed black dress. Maria appeared behind me, her voice soft but firm. He said you should stay in your room. I'm not a prisoner, I said automatically, but the words sounded weak. Maria didn't argue. You might not be, but the world outside doesn't care. She left me with that, and I sank into the chair by the window. Every sound in the mansion, a door closing, a footstep down the hall, made my heart jump. Vincenzo was out there hunting the man I once thought I loved, and part of me didn't know which one I wanted to win. At the docks, the night air was thick with salt and diesel. Cargo cranes loomed like silent giants against the dark sky. Vincenzo Moretti stood between two of his men, his coat open, his stance steady. His eyes were cold, precise, the same eyes that had seen too many betrayals to flinch now. Across from him, Daniel knelt on the damp concrete, hands tied, face bloodied. He looked nothing like the man who had smiled at Clara in photographs, the man who had promised her safety. Please, Vincenzo, Daniel stammered, voice shaking. It wasn't supposed to go this way. You took my money, Vincenzo said, his tone quiet, controlled. You ran, and you brought her into it. Daniel's head snapped up. She didn't know. I swear she didn't. I know, Vincenzo interrupted. That's why you're still breathing. He crouched down so they were face to face, his shadow swallowing Daniel's. Tell me who you sold the information to. Tell me who's behind this, and I'll make it quick. Daniel swallowed hard. They would have killed me if I didn't. You don't understand. It's bigger than you think. The people who came after Clara, they weren't mine. Then whose? Daniel hesitated. His lips trembled, a broken laugh escaping him. Your own family. Vincenzo's eyes narrowed. Be careful what you say. It's true, Daniel whispered. Your uncle, Matteo, he's the one who paid me. Said you were losing control. Said he needed leverage. I didn't know he'd go after her. For a moment, the wind was the only sound. Then Vincenzo stood, pulling out his gun. You're lying. I swear I'm not. Daniel's voice cracked. He's setting you up. You kill me, and he wins. Vincenzo stared down at him, jaw clenched, fury warring with logic. He lowered the gun, but only slightly. Get him out of my sight, he ordered. His men dragged Daniel toward the waiting car. Vincenzo stayed behind, watching the black water churn beneath the pier. His reflection wavered in the ripples, fractured, distorted. Matteo, his uncle, the man who had raised him after his father's death, the man who had taught him everything about loyalty and control. And now, the man trying to destroy him. I couldn't sleep. The mansion's lights flickered in long, empty corridors, throwing shadows against the walls. Every hour felt heavier than the last. I replayed everything in my mind. The wedding, the rain, the way Vincenzo had looked at me, both furious and almost protective. Something about him had shifted last night. I could feel it. I heard footsteps approaching. I froze, heart racing. The door opened. It wasn't Maria. Luca, the tall man who always hovered near Vincenzo, stepped inside. His face was unreadable. He's back. I stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. Is he hurt? No. Luca's voice stayed even. But you should prepare yourself. He's not in a forgiving mood. When Vincenzo entered the study a few minutes later, the air seemed to tighten. His coat was damp, his hair disheveled, but his eyes burned like ice. You found him, I said quietly. He nodded once. Is he alive? Vincenzo said. For now. Relief washed through me, followed immediately by confusion. For now? He paced to the fireplace, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. He talked. About what? About me, he said flatly. About my family. My uncle. I frowned. What about him? Vincenzo exhaled a stream of smoke. He wants control. Always has. I didn't see it before because I didn't want to. He turned to face me. And he used you to get it. The words hit like a slap. Me? Why would he? Because you were Daniel's fiancé, he said. And Daniel was an easy target. Money, access, desperation. Matteo used him to bleed my accounts, to draw me out. So this whole thing? My voice faltered. The attacks, the kidnapping, even my wedding. He nodded once. All of it. My knees felt weak. I sat down before I could fall. You think your uncle wants you dead? I know he does. Silence stretched between us. Then I whispered, So what happens now? Vincenzo's gaze softened slightly, the storm behind his eyes dimming just enough to show the man beneath. Now I take back what's mine. And I make sure he never touches you again. I met his eyes. You can't protect everyone, Vincenzo. He stepped closer, voice low. Maybe not. But I can protect you. The words shouldn't have made my heart ache the way they did. But they did. Hours later, I found him again. This time in his office. The desk was covered in maps, photographs, and folders. His men stood waiting for orders, their faces grim. When he saw me, he waved them out. The door closed behind them, leaving us alone. You shouldn't be here, he said without looking up. I'm tired of hiding. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You don't understand what's coming. Then make me understand. He looked at me, really looked. His expression was a mix of admiration and frustration. You don't belong in this world. Maybe not, I said, but your world found me anyway. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. You could still walk away, Clara. Forget all of this. I could make sure you're safe. Safe? I laughed bitterly. You mean locked away somewhere while you go to war with your own family? If that's what it takes. I stepped forward, anger and fear swirling together. I don't want your protection, Vincenzo. I want the truth. He rose from his chair and suddenly he was close, too close. His presence was heat and shadow, his breath brushing my cheek. The truth, he murmured, is that I don't know what to do with you. Try honesty, I whispered. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. Then he reached out and touched my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. "If I were honest," he said softly, "I'd tell you that keeping you here isn't about protection anymore." "Then what is it?" He hesitated, his thumb brushing against my skin. "Because every time I let you out of my sight, I feel like something's going to take you away." The air thickened between us. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The danger in his voice wasn't threat. It was emotion he didn't know how to control. "Vincenzo," I whispered, "this can't happen." "It already is." He leaned closer, the space between us dissolving, until a knock shattered the moment. "Boss!" Luca's voice came through the door. "We have a problem." Vincenzo stepped back instantly, his mask sliding into place. "What is it?" Luca entered, tense. "Your uncle's men. They're here. At the gates." The sound of engines echoed faintly through the walls. Vincenzo turned toward me, his tone sharp but protective. "Stay in this room. Don't open the door for anyone." "Vincenzo?" But he was already gone, his voice barking orders down the hall. I ran to the window. Black cars rolled up the driveway, headlights slicing through the dark. Dozens of men poured out, weapons in hand. I pressed my palm to the cold glass, watching the man who had terrified me become the one I was terrified for. And as the first shots rang out in the distance, I knew there was no turning back. The first gunshot split the night like a scream. I ducked instinctively, heart hammering as glass shattered somewhere down the corridor. The mansion, quiet, elegant, and cold, erupted into chaos. Shouts, footsteps, the thundering echo of returned fire. My pulse beat in my ears. For a second, I couldn't move. Then instinct kicked in. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find. A lamp, like that would do anything against a hail of bullets. The hallway lights flickered. Shadows stretched along the marble floors. "Maria!" I called out, but no one answered. More shots, closer this time. I pressed myself against the wall and edged toward the study. Every step felt heavier, my shoes slipping against the polished tile. My breath came fast and shallow. Then I saw him. Vincenzo. He was halfway down the staircase, his men flanking him. His voice carried through the chaos, low and commanding, every word like a blade cutting through panic. "Cover the east wing. Don't let them near the south entrance. Matteo wants a message. Give him one." His men moved without hesitation. For a moment, I just watched him. The man who'd haunted my thoughts now looked like something out of a nightmare, but also like the only thing standing between life and death. His jaw was tight, his black shirt already smudged with dust and blood. He turned and saw me. His expression changed instantly. Anger, fear, then relief. "Clara!" His voice hit me like a command. "Get down!" Before I could react, he was beside me, pulling me to the floor just as a bullet tore through the wall where my head had been a heartbeat ago. "Are you out of your mind?" he growled, his arm braced protectively around me. "I heard gunshots, and you thought you'd walk into them. I was looking for Maria. She's with the guards. You're supposed to be hiding, not dying," I wanted to yell back, but his body shielded mine completely. He glanced up, eyes sharp as glass, then fired 3 rounds toward the open balcony. The return gunfire stopped. He helped me up roughly, his hand gripping my wrist. "Come on." We moved fast. Or rather, he dragged me through the corridor while barking orders into a radio clipped to his belt. His voice was clipped, focused, deadly. 2 at the west doors, 1 near the kitchen. Matteo's car just past the gates. Take it out before it reaches the front steps. He shoved open the door to a narrow stairwell. Down. The steps were steep, the air thick with dust. We descended into darkness, lit only by the emergency lights flickering red against the stone walls. "What is this place?" I whispered. "Safe passage," he said, built for times like this. How often do times like this happen? He didn't answer. When we reached the bottom, he pushed open a heavy metal door, revealing a smaller underground chamber. A few men were there, armed and tense. Maps and monitors covered the walls. One of them turned. "Boss, east side is clear, but they've got snipers by the fountain. We're trying to—" A sharp explosion shook the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling. Vincenzo swore under his breath. "They've breached the front." He turned to me. "Stay here." I caught his sleeve. "No." He looked down at my hand, gripping him. For a heartbeat, the fury in his eyes dimmed. "Clara." His voice softened, dangerously quiet. "Don't make me choose between killing them and keeping you safe." "I can't just sit here and wait," I whispered, "not knowing if you'll come back." He exhaled sharply, not frustration, but something raw. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small black pistol. "Take it," he said. "I don't know how to—" "Safety's here. Point and pull if you have to. Don't hesitate." He pressed the cold metal into my hand. Our fingers brushed, and something electric passed between us. Fear, adrenaline, longing, all tangled together. Then he was gone, disappearing up the stairs like a shadow. Minutes passed like hours. I stood by the monitors, watching grainy camera feeds. The mansion was chaos. Bodies moving through smoke, flashes of gunfire lighting up the dark halls. One screen showed the main staircase. Vincenzo was there, firing, moving, commanding. A ghost wrapped in danger, another explosion. The cameras blinked out. "Boss! West Wing!" Someone shouted through the radio. "They're pushing hard!" I stared at the static on the screen, heart racing. I couldn't stay here. Before I could think twice, I grabbed the pistol tighter and bolted up the stairs. The air upstairs was thick with smoke. My lungs burned as I ran through the shattered hallways. Furniture was overturned, glass crunched under my feet. I heard voices ahead, deep, accented, not Vincenzo's. "Find her. Matteo wants the girl alive." My blood froze. I ducked into a side corridor, pressing myself against the wall. Footsteps echoed closer. 2 men, both armed, both searching. I swallowed hard, raised the gun, and tried to steady my shaking hands. When the first man turned the corner, his eyes widened. I fired. The sound was deafening. The recoil nearly threw me backward, but the bullet hit its mark. The man dropped. The second one shouted, swinging his weapon toward me, but before he could fire, a shot rang out from behind him. Vincenzo. He lowered his gun, eyes blazing. "You just don't listen." "I saved myself," I said, my voice shaking. He strode toward me, grabbed my face between his hands. "You scared the hell out of me." I could barely breathe. His forehead rested against mine, his chest rising and falling fast. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured. "Neither should you," I whispered back. He gave a low, humorless laugh. "Touché." The sound of engines roared outside. More cars, more men. Vincenzo's expression hardened again. "It's Matteo," he said. "He's here." Through the shattered windows, I saw the headlights cutting through the smoke. A convoy of black cars stopped at the gates. Vincenzo walked to the window, gun in hand, shoulders tense. I'd never seen him look like this. Not angry, but hollow. "This ends tonight," he said quietly. He turned to me. "Go back downstairs. Lock the door. Don't open it until I come for you. I'm not leaving you." "Clara," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut. "I can't fight while worrying about you. Please." The word "please" broke me. I nodded slowly. "Just come back." He leaned down, pressed a kiss to my forehead, the briefest touch, soft and desperate. And then he was gone. I watched from the staircase as he stepped outside, his silhouette framed by the burning light from the mansion. The front doors hung open like broken wings. Matteo waited beyond the fountain, older, heavier, his hair silver under the dim light. But his smile was cold. "Vincenzo," he said, spreading his arms. "You finally learned to stop hiding." "Should have buried you years ago," Vincenzo replied. "Then you should have done it," Matteo said calmly. "Now you've left me no choice." Dozens of guns were raised. Vincenzo didn't flinch. Neither have I. The night erupted in gunfire. From inside the house, I screamed his name. The battle outside blurred into chaos. Shouts, smoke, firelight, until one figure stumbled back through the doors, blood staining his shoulder. Vincenzo. He fell to one knee, clutching his arm, but still holding his weapon. I ran to him, ignoring Luca's shout to stay back. He looked up at me, pain flashing across his face. But his eyes, those fierce gray eyes, still burned. "Clara," he whispered, voice hoarse. "Get down." Behind him, Matteo stepped through the smoke, gun raised. I froze. Matteo smiled. "You were always too soft, Vincenzo, and she'll be your downfall." He pulled the trigger. A single gunshot, then silence. When I opened my eyes, Vincenzo was on the ground, and Matteo stood staring in disbelief, a bullet hole blooming in his chest. I realized the gun in my hand was smoking. I had pulled the trigger. Vincenzo looked up at me, shock and pain written across his face. But behind it, something else. Something like awe. "You," he started, but his strength gave out. I dropped beside him, cradling his head in my lap, my hands slick with blood. "Don't you dare die on me." He gave a faint, broken smile. "You're full of surprises." Outside, the last of Matteo's men scattered into the dark, and as sirens began to wail in the distance, I held Vincenzo closer, whispering over and over, "Stay with me. Please." His hand found mine, fingers trembling. "I'm not going anywhere," he murmured. "Not without you." The house was silent again, but not in peace. The air smelled of smoke and gunpowder, heavy and metallic. I knelt on the cold marble floor, my hands still pressed to Vincenzo's wound, trying to keep him from bleeding out. "Stay with me," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Do you hear me? You don't get to die now." His eyes fluttered open, gray and distant. "Clara." "Don't talk," I said, pressing harder. My hands were shaking so violently I barely felt the pain in my palms anymore. "Just hold on." Footsteps echoed behind me. Luca appeared, his face grim. "Get him upstairs. Now!" Two men rushed in, lifting Vincenzo carefully. He groaned, the sound guttural and raw, before going limp. I followed them up the grand staircase, my dress torn, my heart threatening to break with every step. The world outside was sirens and chaos. Inside, time stood still. They laid him on the massive bed in his room. The sheets turned red almost instantly. Maria appeared with bandages, towels, and a metal case that looked like it belonged in a war zone. "Bullet went through," one of the men said, cutting away his shirt. "We got lucky." Lucky. The word sounded cruel. I stood by the door, gripping the frame, unable to look away. He looked pale, almost unreal, his chest rising in shallow breaths. "Is he going to be okay?" I asked. No one answered. The doctor, an older man with trembling hands but sharp eyes, worked in silence. His tools clinked softly in the dim light. I wanted to help, but every time I moved closer, Luca shook his head. Finally, the doctor said, "He'll live, but he needs rest. Don't move him for at least a day." Relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. When the doctor left, Luca lingered by the doorway. "You saved his life," he said quietly. I looked up, my voice hollow. "I killed a man." "Matteo," he said. You didn't kill a man. You killed a monster. But I wasn't sure that made it better. He paused, studying me. He won't forgive himself for letting you get that close to danger. I don't need him to, I said. I just need him to wake up. Luca nodded once and left, closing the door behind him. I was alone with the man who had turned my world inside out. Hours passed. The rain started again, tapping softly against the windows. I sat beside the bed, wiping sweat from Vincenzo's brow, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Every breath felt like a promise he was fighting to keep. When I finally dozed off, I woke to a soft whisper. Clara. My head snapped up. His eyes were open, faint but focused. You're awake, I breathed, tears burning my eyes. He gave a weak smile. You look terrible. I laughed through the tears. You should see yourself. He tried to move, grimaced, then stilled. Matteo? Gone. I swallowed hard. I shot him. Something unreadable flickered in his gaze. Shock, grief, maybe pride. You saved me. I had to. He looked at me for a long time, eyes soft despite the pain. I told you to stay away. And you told me to shoot if I had to. A faint chuckle escaped him, turning into a groan. Remind me never to argue with you again. The air between us thickened, full of everything we'd been avoiding. I could see it in his expression, the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. The man who ruled empires and silenced enemies looked almost human. Vincenzo, I whispered. Why did you come to my wedding? His eyes darkened, the weight of memory pulling him back. Because I couldn't let you make the same mistake I did. What mistake? Loving someone who only wants your name, not your soul. He looked away then, his jaw tightening. You don't belong in my world, Clara. But the moment I saw you, standing there in that white dress, I knew I'd already lost the fight. My heart clenched. You don't get to decide where I belong. His gaze found mine again, raw and exposed. If I keep you, I'll ruin you. Then ruin me, I said softly. The silence that followed was thick, alive. He reached for my hand, slow, uncertain, and when his fingers brushed mine, it felt like everything inside me finally exhaled. The storm outside built again, thunder rumbling low and steady. He closed his eyes, the faintest smile playing on his lips. You're not afraid anymore. I was never afraid of you, I whispered. Just what you made me feel. His hand tightened around mine, and I felt the faintest pull, a plea, a surrender. Stay, he said, his voice barely audible. I'm not going anywhere. Vincenzo drifted in and out of sleep for the next 2 days. His men came and went, murmuring updates. Matteo's death had sent ripples through the family. Confusion, power shifts, silence from allies who used to call daily. Every time the door opened, I half expected someone to drag me away. Instead, they nodded respectfully, like they already understood what I hadn't yet said aloud, that I wasn't leaving his side. When he finally managed to stand again, weak but defiant, he insisted on walking to the balcony. The city stretched below us, glowing in the distance. He leaned on the railing, a blanket over his shoulders, looking out like a king surveying what he'd nearly lost. This city will never forgive me, he said quietly. Then make it fear you again, I said. He glanced at me, amused. You sound like one of us. Maybe I am now. His eyes softened. Don't say that. Why not? I've already killed for you. He flinched, turning away. That's not something to be proud of. It's something I live with, I said. And so do you. He didn't respond. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of rain dripping from the eaves. Then he said, I don't deserve you, Clara. I stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth from his skin. Maybe not. But you have me. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time since that night, there was no mask, no armor, just a man stripped bare. He touched my face gently, as if afraid I'd disappear. "If you stay, there's no going back." "I don't want to go back," I whispered. "Not to who I was before you." He leaned forward, his lips brushing mine, soft, hesitant, like a question waiting for an answer. And when I kissed him back, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, inevitable. The storm outside crashed in perfect rhythm with our hearts. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. "You have no idea what you've done to me." "Maybe I do." He laughed, a low, broken sound that made my chest ache. For once, there were no guards, no threats, no lies. Just us. But deep down, I knew peace in Vincenzo Moretti's world never lasted long. Because somewhere, in the silence after the storm, danger always found a way to whisper back. And when it did, we'd face it together. The morning light filtered through the tall curtains, soft and deceptive. For a moment, I almost believed we were ordinary. A man recovering from an injury, a woman keeping watch. But the truth was stitched into every shadow of that mansion. Power, secrets, blood. I poured coffee into a porcelain cup, the aroma filling the air. Vincenzo sat in his study, the one room that felt more like a fortress than an office. He was dressed in a dark shirt, sleeves rolled up, the wound beneath still healing, but his authority already restored. "You should still be resting," I said, placing the cup on his desk. He didn't look up from the file in his hand. "Rest is a luxury I can't afford. Matteo's death left a gap, and gaps in this family get filled fast." I leaned against the edge of the desk. "By who?" He met my eyes then, gray, calculating, but softer when they landed on me. "His cousin, Lorenzo. He's been quiet, which means he's planning something." "And what about your men?" "They'll follow whoever bleeds least," he said. "Loyalty is a myth in this business. Fear is the only language that lasts." His words chilled me. Yet the way he said them, weary, detached, made me realize it wasn't pride. It was survival. Before I could reply, Luca entered, a grim look on his face. "We have a problem." Vincenzo stiffened. "Talk." Luca placed a small envelope on the desk. "This came an hour ago. No return address. Delivered by hand." Vincenzo opened it, his expression darkening as he read. I saw the flicker of rage in his eyes, the kind that came before violence. He handed it to me. Inside was a single photograph. Blurry, but unmistakable. Me, leaving the mansion 2 days ago, blood still on my dress. And beneath it, a message scrawled in red ink. "She's your weakness." My breath caught. "Who sent this?" "Lorenzo," Vincenzo said. His voice was calm, too calm. "He's watching." I stared at the photo, the air suddenly thick. "He knows about me." "He always did," Vincenzo said, standing. "Now he's decided to use it." Luca glanced between us. "We can move her. Safe house? New name?" "No," Vincenzo snapped. "She stays here." I turned to him. "You can't protect me like this forever." He looked at me then, and something fierce flashed in his eyes. "I can try." The rest of the day passed under a shroud of tension. Men with guns patrolled the halls. Every sound, a door closing, footsteps in the distance, made my heart jump. Vincenzo disappeared for hours, leaving me alone in the vast emptiness of the mansion. I wandered through it, past grand staircases and silent portraits, until I found myself in a long, dim hallway lined with old photographs. In one of them, Vincenzo stood beside an older man. The same sharp features, the same cold pride in his eyes. His father. I touched the frame, tracing the edge. "You look like him," I murmured, not realizing Vincenzo had come up behind me. He stopped at my shoulder, his voice low. "That's not a compliment." I turned, startled. "He was your father." "He was a tyrant," he said, "and I killed him." The words hung heavy between us. He stepped closer, his gaze distant. "He built this empire out of fear. I inherited it out of obligation. But every time I look at these walls, I see him, watching, judging, waiting for me to fail." I swallowed hard. "You're not him." He laughed bitterly. "Aren't I? Look around you, Clara. The blood on these floors is mine now." I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "You think you understand this world because you've seen me wounded, because you've heard my confessions. But you don't know what it costs to keep power, to keep you." His words cut, but beneath them was pain. Old, festering, unhealed. "Then show me," I said. "If you really think I don't understand, stop hiding." He studied me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine. Then he turned, walked to a locked drawer, and pulled out a black file. Inside were photographs, people, names, locations. "These are the ones who tried to destroy me," he said quietly. "Every one of them is gone now. My father started the list. I finished it." The faces stared back at me. Some men, some women, some young. All dead. "You killed them," I whispered. He nodded. "To survive." I closed the file, trembling. "And how many more have to die before you stop?" He didn't answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt too still, too aware. I walked out onto the balcony, the air cold against my skin. The city lights glimmered below, a world that kept turning, unaware of the war that was about to break loose above it. I heard footsteps. Vincenzo joined me, his shirt unbuttoned, the scar on his chest visible in the moonlight. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Neither can you." He leaned on the railing beside me. "There's something about nights like this. Makes ghosts restless." I glanced at him. "Your father?" "Among others." He exhaled, watching the smoke curl from his cigarette. "Lorenzo's not like Matteo. He won't attack head-on. He'll make me watch everything I love burn first." I turned to face him fully, then stop him. He smiled faintly. "You make it sound simple." "Because it is," I said. "You've fought men like him before." He shook his head. "Not while trying to protect someone I care about." My breath caught. "You care about me?" His eyes met mine, steady, unflinching. "You think I'd burn half this city to the ground for just anyone?" Silence. Then the distance between us vanished. He pulled me close, his mouth finding mine, urgent and consuming. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was a declaration, a promise, a warning. When it broke, his forehead rested against mine. "You make me weak," he whispered. "No," I said, breathless. "I make you human." He looked at me for a moment, as if searching for something he'd long forgotten how to feel. Then he stepped back. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start preparing." "For what?" "For war." But sleep never came. Near dawn, a sound echoed through the hall. Soft, metallic, deliberate. I grabbed the gun Vincenzo had left on the nightstand and crept to the door. The handle turned from the other side. Before I could shout, the door burst open. Luca stumbled in, blood running down his arm. "Clara, get him!" Then I heard it. The sharp crack of gunfire downstairs. Vincenzo's world was burning again. And this time, the ghosts of his family had come back to finish what they started. Gunfire shattered the silence. It was sharp, echoing through marble halls and glass chandeliers, like the mansion itself was crying out in pain. I froze, clutching the gun so tightly my knuckles went white. Luca stumbled against the doorframe, his shirt soaked crimson. "They're inside," he gasped. "Lorenzo's men." My heart dropped. "Where's Vincenzo?" "He's downstairs." Without another word, I ran. The air was filled with chaos, shouts, the metallic scent of blood, the acrid smoke of gunfire. I tore through the corridor, my bare feet slipping on polished floors. A body lay at the foot of the stairs. One of Vincenzo's men, eyes glassy, still holding his weapon. I could hear him before I saw him. Vincenzo's voice, low and commanding, cutting through the panic. "Hold the east wing. No one moves until I say." Then a gun went off, close. Too close. I ducked, pressing myself against the wall. "Clara!" His voice came from across the hall, raw and furious. He was standing near the grand staircase, gun raised, blood on his sleeve. "Stay back!" he shouted. "Get to the cellar!" But I didn't listen. I couldn't. I watched as one of Lorenzo's men crept from behind the staircase, gun aimed at his back. Without thinking, I raised my weapon and fired. The recoil jolted through my body. The man crumpled instantly. Vincenzo turned, eyes wide, jaw tight. "You shouldn't have done that." "You're welcome," I snapped, trembling. Then the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only flashes of gunfire lit the chaos. "Clara!" Vincenzo's voice again, close, then fading. I followed the sound, my heart beat a drum in my ears. A hand grabbed me from behind. I swung the gun, but another caught my wrist. "Easy," came a low voice, not Vincenzo's. "You're even prettier up close." Lorenzo. I didn't need to see his face to know it. His tone was smooth, venomous, dripping with the kind of charm that came right before a knife in the dark. He leaned close, the smell of smoke and leather filling my senses. "Do you know how many men have died for you tonight?" "Let me go," I hissed, struggling. "Oh, I will," he said softly. "After Vincenzo watches me do it." The click of his gun echoed, and something inside me snapped. I drove my elbow into his ribs, hard. He grunted, but his grip didn't loosen. The next sound was a gunshot, not his, not mine. And then he was gone. Vincenzo stood in the doorway, face hard as stone, smoke rising from his pistol. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, grabbing my shoulders. "Are you hurt?" "No," I whispered. He looked me over, eyes fierce, and for a moment everything else, the noise, the fire, the death, disappeared. But the moment didn't last. A blast rocked the mansion, shattering what was left of the east wing. Dust and debris rained from above. "They're breaching the lower floor." Luca's voice came from somewhere behind us, weak but steady. "Get everyone out," Vincenzo ordered. "And you?" "I'll finish this." We made it to the cellar entrance, but I stopped at the door. "I'm not leaving you." Vincenzo turned, gun in hand, eyes burning. "Clara, you don't belong in this." "I do now." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Stay close." We moved through the smoke and ruin. The house that once gleamed with chandeliers now flickered with firelight and gunfire. The smell of burning wood mixed with blood. Every corner could have been the last. We found Lorenzo near the foyer, standing among the wreckage of what had been a masterpiece of Italian architecture. His men were dead or dying, his own arm bleeding. "Well," he said, smirking as he saw Vincenzo, "the prodigal son returns." "Enough," Vincenzo growled. "Walk away, Lorenzo. I'll let you live." Lorenzo laughed, low and cruel. "You sound just like your father before he begged me for mercy." Something shifted in Vincenzo's face. "You killed him." Lorenzo shrugged. "Someone had to. He was old, weak. You've just been living on borrowed time since that night." I could feel the tension coil inside. Vincenzo like a storm ready to break. "You think I'm weak?" he said quietly. "Then finish it." Lorenzo raised his gun. But he was too slow. Vincenzo fired first. Lorenzo staggered, falling to his knees, shock flashing in his eyes before darkness claimed him. The silence that followed was deafening. Only the crackle of flames filled the void. Vincenzo lowered his weapon, shoulders shaking. I reached for him, and he caught my wrist, pulling me close, holding me like I was the only thing tethering him to this world. "It's over," I whispered. He shook his head. "No, it's never over. They'll come again. They always do." "Then we'll face them," I said. "Together." His eyes softened, the steel giving way to something human, fragile, real. He pressed his forehead to mine. "You shouldn't have to live in this darkness." "Then take me somewhere there's light." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he pulled back, the faintest smile ghosting his lips. "You don't know what you're asking." "Try me." He kissed me, slow, desperate, like he was afraid it might be the last time. By dawn, the mansion was a ruin. The fire had been put out, the wounded taken away. What remained was quiet, the kind of quiet that follows destruction. Vincenzo stood outside, the sunrise washing over him. Smoke clung to his clothes, blood dried on his hands. He looked less like a man and more like a fallen god. I joined him, wrapping my arms around his waist. "What now?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze was fixed on the horizon. "Now I rebuild, not the house. The man I should have been before all this." "And me?" I asked softly. He looked down at me then, something unspoken in his eyes. "You," he said, voice low, "are the only thing worth saving." He touched my cheek, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. And for the first time, I saw it. Not the mafia boss, not the killer, but the man beneath it all. And for the first time, I believed he could change. But deep down, I also knew something else. The past never stays buried, and the ghosts of his world were still watching. The sun rose over the wreckage of the mansion like a cruel joke. Light spilled across shattered glass and splintered marble, glinting off bullet casings like broken stars. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, or what was left of it, trying to believe that the night was over. It wasn't. Vincenzo's men were cleaning up the aftermath, moving bodies, collecting weapons. The air was thick with smoke and silence. There was no relief in their eyes, only exhaustion, suspicion, and something darker. I could feel it too, the sense that something was still wrong. Vincenzo stood by the broken doorway, talking quietly with Luca. His shirt was torn, his hands blood-stained, but his voice carried command. Even wounded, he radiated control. Or tried to. When he saw me, his tone softened. "You shouldn't be up." I walked toward him. I couldn't sleep. Every sound feels like a warning. He reached for me, brushing his thumb against my wrist. "That's what this life does. Even when the war's over, it keeps echoing." "Then stop fighting," I whispered. "Leave it behind." He looked at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "There's no leaving, Clara. Not for me." Before I could argue, Luca cleared his throat. "Boss, we found something." Vincenzo turned sharply. "What?" Luca gestured for us to follow. He led us into the study, the room that had once been untouched, immaculate. Now it smelled of smoke and old secrets. On the desk was a leather-bound ledger, its pages marked with ink and numbers. "It was hidden in Lorenzo's car," Luca said. "But it's not his handwriting." Vincenzo flipped through the pages. His expression changed. Confusion first, then disbelief, then fury. I stepped closer. "What is it?" He closed the book slowly, his jaw tight. "Financial records. Money moved from my accounts into offshore holdings. Someone on the inside was funding Lorenzo. My pulse quickened. Who? He didn't answer. Instead, he opened a drawer, pulling out another file. When he compared the signatures, I saw it. The same handwriting. The same slanted letters. Luca shifted uneasily. That's Marco's signature. Marco. Vincenzo's right-hand man. His most trusted soldier. The one who'd been at his side for years. No, I said quietly. It can't be. Vincenzo's expression darkened. He's the only one who could have leaked our movements. Who else knew I was planning to meet Matteo that night? Luca swallowed. Just us. Me, you, Marco. Vincenzo's voice turned cold. Then it's settled. We found Marco in the courtyard, giving orders to a few remaining men. He looked up as we approached, his smile faint but forced. Boss, we're securing the perimeter. No one's getting through now. Vincenzo stopped a few feet away. Good, because we're about to have a private conversation. Marco frowned. What's going on? Vincenzo tossed the ledger at his feet. You tell me. Marco picked it up, flipping through the pages. What is this? Your handwriting, Vincenzo said. Your signature. Your betrayal. The silence that followed was heavy. Marco's eyes flickered. Shock, then something else. Guilt. I did what I had to do, he said finally. Vincenzo's tone dropped to ice. You sold me out to Lorenzo. I saved you, Marco snapped. Don't you get it? Your father's empire was already rotting. Lorenzo offered a way out. A way to rebuild, without all this blood. You lied to me, Vincenzo said. You killed Matteo. You destroyed everything I built. Marco's voice cracked. You built a prison, Vincenzo. I was trying to escape it. Vincenzo raised his gun. So you chose betrayal. Marco met his gaze, defiant. I chose survival. The same thing you've been choosing your whole life. I stepped forward, my voice trembling. Vincenzo, stop. Don't do this. He didn't even look at me. His eyes were locked on Marco. You had a choice, he said quietly. And you chose to kill my family. Marco smirked bitterly. Family? You think this is family? You're your father's son after all. The shot rang out like thunder. Marco fell before he could say another word. Vincenzo didn't flinch. He just stood there, breathing hard, the gun still smoking in his hand. Luca closed his eyes and turned away. I stood frozen, tears blurring my vision. After a long moment, Vincenzo lowered the weapon. His voice, when it came, was low and broken. That's what loyalty costs. That night, the house was quieter than ever. I found Vincenzo sitting in the ruins of his study, the fire in the hearth casting long shadows across his face. He looked older somehow, as if the weight of every life taken had finally caught up to him. I hesitated at the door. You did what you had to do. He didn't look up. That's what they all say. You couldn't let him live. He would have destroyed you. He laughed softly, bitterly. He already did. You think killing him fixes that? I walked closer, kneeling beside him. You're not your father, Vincenzo. He turned to me then, his eyes haunted. Aren't I? I just executed my oldest friend. You did it to protect everyone else. Or to protect what's mine, he said. You. I didn't know what to say. The silence between us was heavy, pulsing with grief and guilt, and something dangerously close to love. Finally, he reached out, his fingers brushing against mine. Every time I think I can walk away, something drags me back. Then let me drag you somewhere else, I said softly. Somewhere this world can't find us. He smiled faintly. Not joy, but disbelief. You still think there's a way out? I have to, I whispered. Because if there isn't, then what are we even fighting for? For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he pulled me into his arms, his breath warm against my neck. "Maybe you're right," he murmured. "Maybe this is our last chance." By dawn, the mansion's gates opened for the first time in weeks. Cars waited, engines running, ready to take us away. Vincenzo stood beside me, black suit, no tie, the man reborn and broken all at once. Luca approached. "You're really leaving?" "For a while," Vincenzo said. "There's nothing left to rule here." Luca nodded, then hesitated. "Be careful. The streets remember their kings." Vincenzo's jaw tightened. "Then let them remember mine." We got into the car. As the gates closed behind us, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. The mansion faded into the distance, the empire, the blood, the ghosts. I turned to Vincenzo. "What happens now?" He looked out the window, eyes hard. "Now, we disappear." But there was something in his tone, a promise or a warning, I couldn't tell. As the city swallowed us, I realized something else. The world he ruled might not let him go so easily. And neither would the darkness that lived inside him. Freedom didn't feel like peace. It felt like silence that was too deep, like the world was holding its breath waiting for something to go wrong. Vincenzo and I had been gone for 3 months. Italy was far behind us now, the city lights replaced by the muted calm of a small coastal village in Montenegro. The air here smelled of salt and pine. No gunfire, no men in suits, no whispers of the underworld. Just the sound of the waves and the illusion of safety. But illusions never lasted long in our world. Every night, Vincenzo sat on the balcony, his cigarette glowing in the dark, eyes fixed on the horizon as if he expected ghosts to rise from the sea. "Can't sleep?" I asked one night, stepping out beside him. He smiled faintly. "I didn't think people like me deserved sleep." "You're not a monster," I said. "You're just haunted." He looked at me for a long time before exhaling smoke. "Haunted men become monsters, Clara. That's how it starts." I sat next to him, pulling my knees to my chest. The ocean breeze tangled my hair. "Then let me haunt you differently." He laughed, soft and almost human. "You already do." For a moment we said nothing, just the wind, the sea, and the faint rhythm of our shared exile. But beneath the calm, something lingered, an unease neither of us could name. In the next morning, I found a letter on the doorstep. No name, no sender. Just a single piece of paper folded inside. My hands shook as I opened it. "He's not finished. They never are. You can't outrun blood." I ran to Vincenzo, heart pounding. He read it, his expression turning to stone. "Who could have found us?" I asked. "Someone who never stopped looking," he said. "Someone who knows how I think." "Lorenzo's gone. Marco's dead. Who's left?" He looked up from the letter. "Lorenzo had a brother." My stomach dropped. "You never mentioned that." "I thought he was dead," Vincenzo said. "But apparently, the dead have a habit of coming back." He moved quickly after that, the careful, calculated precision of a man who'd lived his life expecting betrayal. He packed only what mattered, checked the car, the doors, the perimeter. I stood watching him, fear curling around my chest like smoke. "We can't keep running." "I'm not running," he said quietly. "I'm preparing." That night, the storm hit. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolled like cannon fire. The electricity cut out, plunging the house into darkness. I found Vincenzo in the living room, loading a gun by candlelight. His movements were steady, but I could feel the tension in him, sharp and electric. "Do you really think he's coming?" I whispered. Vincenzo looked up. His eyes caught the flicker of the flame. "He's already here." Before I could speak, a window shattered upstairs. He was moving before I could react, pulling me behind him, gun raised. The sound of footsteps echoed through the house, slow, deliberate. "Stay here," he ordered. "No." "Clara," he said, voice low but commanding. "If anything happens, you run. You don't look back." And then he was gone. I crouched behind the couch, heart pounding in my throat. The thunder outside masked the creak of the floorboards, but I could still hear it, a fight breaking out upstairs. The dull thud of bodies, a gunshot, then silence. Too much silence. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen drawer and crept toward the stairs. "Vincenzo?" I called softly. No answer. Another flash of lightning illuminated the landing, and a man I didn't recognize. Tall, cold eyes, a scar down his cheek. "You must be Clara," he said, voice calm, almost polite. "My brother told me about you." I froze. "Lorenzo's brother." He smiled. "Ah, so he talked about me, too." "Where's Vincenzo?" He gestured toward the hall. "He's alive. For now." My grip tightened on the knife. "What do you want?" "Balance," he said simply. "You took my brother's empire. His life. I'll take yours." Before I could move, a shot rang out. The man stumbled forward, eyes wide, and collapsed at my feet. Behind him stood Vincenzo, blood on his shirt, gun smoking in his hand. I dropped the knife, running to him. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he said through gritted teeth. "You're safe. That's all that matters." I touched his face, tears spilling down. "You can't keep doing this. You'll die for me." He caught my wrist. "Then it'll be for the first good thing I've ever done." We buried the man before dawn, deep in the forest behind the house. The rain had stopped, leaving the world eerily still. When it was over, Vincenzo leaned against a tree, breathing hard. His hand pressed to his side, blood seeping through his shirt. "You need a doctor," I said. He shook his head. "I need you." I tore part of my dress to bandage his wound. His fingers brushed my cheek. "I don't know how to be good, Clara, but I'm trying." I smiled through the tears. "Then try with me." He looked at me as if I was the last light in a dark world. "You shouldn't have to carry me." "I already am." He pulled me close then, his lips finding mine. Desperate, raw, trembling. The kiss tasted of rain and salt and everything we'd survived. When he broke away, his forehead rested against mine. "If I lose you, I lose whatever's left of me." "Then don't let me go," I whispered. And for the first time since I met him, he didn't. Days passed. The blood dried. The world outside moved on, unaware of the ghosts buried beneath the earth. We stayed, not because it was safe, but because it was ours. The sea became our secret witness, the sound of the waves our only absolution. At night, Vincenzo would lie awake, tracing circles on my skin, whispering things he'd never said before. "I used to dream of power," he murmured once. "Now I dream of silence." "You already have it," I said. He smiled faintly. "Only because of you." I didn't answer. I just pressed my palm over his heart, feeling it beat beneath the scars. For the first time, it felt like home. Morning light spilled through the curtains, soft and gold. For one fragile second, I thought the world had finally given us peace. Vincenzo was still asleep beside me, one arm draped over my waist, his breathing slow and steady. The scent of salt and smoke lingered faintly on his skin. Then I saw it. The envelope on the table by the window. No postage, no signature. Just like before. My pulse quickened as I slipped from the bed and crossed the room. The paper felt damp, as if it had been touched by the sea. I unfolded it slowly. Inside was a single photograph, taken from a distance, grainy but unmistakable. Me and Vincenzo on the balcony last night. My head on his shoulder, his arm around me. Below it, a line of handwriting in red ink. Did you really think it would end like this? My breath caught. I turned toward Vincenzo. He was awake now, watching me with that look, the one that meant he already knew. Another message, I whispered. Someone's here. He rose, silent, moving with the same precision I'd seen 100 times. He took the photo, studied it, then burned it in the ashtray. The flames reflected in his eyes, a quiet fury simmering beneath the surface. They want to draw me out, he said. Make me finish what they couldn't. Then we leave again, I said. We disappear. We can... He shook his head. No, Clara. Running doesn't end it. It just delays it. I swallowed. Then what does? He met my eyes. An ending? The next few hours passed in quiet tension. Vincenzo checked the car, the house, the perimeter. He loaded his gun but left it on the counter, as if part of him didn't want to use it. I stood by the window, watching the waves crash against the rocks. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Who's left to come after us? He didn't look up. The sons, the ones who think revenge is a birthright. They want to finish their father's war. And you? I want to end it without blood, he said softly. For you. There was something final in his tone. Not defeat, but acceptance. By sunset, the world had gone too still. The storm had passed, but the silence carried weight, as if the night itself was waiting to break. I sat on the steps outside, watching the sky darken to violet. The first stars began to appear, faint and trembling. Behind me, the door opened. Vincenzo stepped out, dressed in black. The kind of black that belonged to funerals and final choices. You're going, aren't you? I asked. He hesitated. If I don't, they'll keep coming. They'll never stop. Then I'm coming with you. He smiled faintly. You're not a soldier, Clara. No, but I'm not leaving you. For a moment, he just looked at me, and I saw the struggle in his eyes. Duty versus love. Violence versus peace. Finally, he reached out, brushing his thumb across my cheek. You've already given me more than I deserve. Let me do this. I caught his hand. Then promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll come back. He leaned in, pressing his forehead to mine. I'll try, he whispered. Then he was gone. Hours passed. The night stretched endlessly. I paced the house, counting the seconds between waves crashing outside. The air smelled of rain and metal. When the sound finally came, engines in the distance, tires on gravel, my chest tightened. I ran to the balcony. 3 cars, black, no headlights. Gunfire cracked across the cliffs like thunder. My heart jumped into my throat. Vincenzo, I whispered. I grabbed the small pistol he'd left me and ran outside, ignoring the cold, the fear, the voice in my head screaming to hide. The road was slick with rain, the air heavy with smoke. Down near the tree line, flashes of light flickered. Muzzle fire. Shadows moved fast, shouting in Italian. Then I saw him. Vincenzo. He was pinned behind the car, firing back. Blood streaked his arm, but his movements were sure, deadly. 3 men fell. Another tried to flank him. I didn't think. I raised the gun and fired. The man dropped. Vincenzo turned, shock flashing in his eyes when he saw me. Clara! He shouted. Get back inside! But it was too late. Another figure stepped out of the dark behind him. The leader. Tall. Cold. Smiling. The gun aimed at Vincenzo's back. Time slowed. I ran forward, the world narrowing to the sound of my heartbeat. The shot rang out. Vincenzo stumbled. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over, until the man fell instead, a clean hole through his chest. Vincenzo turned. The pistol still smoked in his hand. The last enemy dropped to the ground, silence following like a shadow. For a long time, neither of us moved. Just the sound of rain on metal. Then Vincenzo looked at me, pale, shaking. You shouldn't have come. I reached him, breathless. You knew I would. He smiled faintly. I was hoping you wouldn't prove me right. I pressed a hand to his side. Blood. Too much of it. You're hurt. It's not the first time, he murmured. But maybe the last. Don't say that. He cupped my face, thumb trembling against my skin. If I don't make it, listen to me. Stop, I said, voice breaking. You promised. He exhaled softly. Then I'll keep it. We got back to the house before dawn. The horizon burned with the first blush of light. I helped him inside, patched what wounds I could. He was weak, but alive. When I sat beside him, he caught my hand and didn't let go. It's over, I whispered. He shook his head. It'll never really be over, but we ended it for now. And after this? After this, he said, we live. I smiled through the tears. Together? Always. He leaned in, his lips brushing mine. Slow, certain, the kind of kiss that tasted like a beginning, not an ending. Outside, the waves hit the shore again and again, endless and steady like a heartbeat. Weeks passed. The scars began to fade. Vincenzo walked with a limp now, but his eyes had softened. Sometimes I'd catch him watching the sea for hours, as if searching for ghosts. One evening, he took my hand and placed something small and cold in my palm. A silver ring. Simple. Honest. I never thought I'd ask anyone this, he said, voice rough. But if you'll have me... I laughed through tears. After everything? Because of everything. I didn't answer with words. I slipped the ring on my finger and kissed him, slow and sure. For once, there was no thunder, no shadows waiting beyond the window. Just us. He pulled me close, whispering against my skin. I made an oath once, to destroy everything that threatened me. I'm making another now. What is it? I asked softly. To protect everything that makes me human. And what's that? He smiled. You. That night, as the tide rose and the stars burned bright, I finally believed him. The Mafia boss who once lived in darkness had found his redemption not through blood or revenge, but through love that refused to surrender. And as I lay beside him, listening to the rhythm of the sea and his heart beating in sync with mine, I knew that even in a world built on sin and secrets, love could still be the most dangerous and beautiful rebellion of all.